Hey friends, welcome back to Hot Air with me, Joshua Robert. This is the first episode of February, and all month long we're diving into LGBTQ plus dating, romance, intimacy, and sex. Today we're kicking things off by talking about why queer people often feel behind when it comes to love and relationships, how dating apps and gay culture can be both liberating and exhausting. Why many of us experience this explosive sexual liberation as we get older, and most importantly, tools to help you check in with yourself emotionally, navigate dating intentionally, and actually enjoy the messy, magical ride of queer love. And before we get into it, there's no visuals today. Probably highly likely through February and March there will not be. I just moved into a new space where I have an entire room that is going to be dedicated to hot air. So we are going to be revamping the pod space, the pod loft, the pod whatever you want to call it, pod studio. So for now, it's just going to be my voice. So if you're one of the people who enjoys watching my weird faces and expressions, I sincerely apologize, but we're going to kind of kick off the 1-year anniversary of Hot Air with a new look, a new vibe, a new room, and it's going to be worth the wait, okay? And before we jump in, a quick reminder to follow me on Instagram and TikTok at _hotairpod, and head over to my website, hotairwithjoshuarobert.com, where you can shop merch, submit listener stories, and send me topic suggestions for future episodes. So now that we've set the stage, let's just get into it. Let's hit it. Okay, before we actually hit it, what's really funny is that this episode and this month is all about queer love and liberation, and I'm quite literally sitting in my closet. I'm physically in my brand new giant walk-in closet that is 3 times the size of my old closet, and but I think it's really funny metaphorically for me to be talking about all of this queer love while I'm in the closet, but I digress. Let us begin. Part 1. The delayed timeline. Why queer love starts later. So like I said, February is here, rent is due, and everywhere you look, it's heart-shaped candy. You've got couples doing soft-focus Instagram reels and matching sweaters, and this weird cultural pressure that if you're not madly in love, you're somehow failing at life. I don't know about you, but Valentine's season has always made me feel a little bit more reflective, a little spicy, a little feral at times, because love, dating, romance, sex, all of it has felt different for me than what I was told it was supposed to look like growing up. And after talking to so many other queer friends, queer listeners, queer strangers at bars and on planes and in the DMs, I've realized something huge. It's not just me. It's not just you. It's kind of all of us. So, like I said, this month, we're talking all the dating, the this and that, the real version, the messy, delayed, hilarious, occasionally traumatic, occasionally magical versions of queer life. And I want to start here because this is the foundation for everything else that we're going to talk about. The psychology of why so many LGBTQ plus people feel like they were late to love. Like we showed up to the party and everyone else already knows the dance and we're still by the wall just pretending to fit in, pretending like we know what the fuck is going on. There's this thing that nobody tells you when you're queer, especially if you grew up in a straight world, which is the world that we live in. Straight people get to practice romance from the time that they are kids, which I also don't agree with. You know, like some friends of mine have kids that are about like 4 years old and they're like, oh, they're going to date this and that person when they're older. Like, isn't he such a heartbreaker? You're already pushing your straight agenda, for lack of a better term, onto these kids. But straight people, if you do grow up to be straight, have been practicing dating since the day you were born, essentially. And it's not really talked about. It's just built into their life. They have crushes in 3rd grade. They pass notes. They hold hands at recess. In middle school, they have awkward dances and first kisses behind the bleachers or the curtain in theater. In high school, you get to go to prom. You date badly. You get your hearts broken. You learn what jealousy feels like, what boundaries feel like, what it means to like someone who doesn't like you back or like someone who does like you back. They get to do this over and over again. They get years and years of low stakes practice at connection. By the time that straight people are 25, they've already had 10 years of emotional trial and error. They've built muscle memory around love. Meanwhile, a lot of us gays, us queers, wherever you fall in the rainbow alphabet, we're not doing any of that. We weren't practicing flirting. We weren't practicing vulnerability. We were not practicing saying, I like you to the same sex. We were practicing survival. We were scanning rooms. We were code switching. We were lowering our voices or changing the way that we walked or pretending we didn't notice the cute guy in math class because noticing him felt dangerous. A lot of us were not thinking, how do I get a date? We were thinking, how do I not get bullied today? How do I not go home in fucking tears? Or how do I not get found out? Or how do I make it through this without someone clocking me? That is not a romantic training ground, okay? That is a defense training ground. So while straight kids were building relationship skills, we, the queer kids, were building armor. And sure, armor is great for protection, but it's terrible for intimacy. You can't hug someone in full body armor. You can't fall in love while bracing for impact. So then something happens. We graduate, or we move, or we come out, or we finally feel safe enough to just give it a try. And suddenly we're 22 or 25 or 30, or for some people 50, and it's our first real crush, our first real date, our first time holding someone's hand in public without fear. And emotionally, it feels huge and overwhelming and almost teenage again, because in a lot of ways, it is teenage. It's not that we're immature, it's that we are new. We're new to something that straight people have about a decade on us. And that is something that is really challenging for straight people to kind of acknowledge and understand, and rightfully so. They're not in our shoes, but most of us know this to be fact. And I remember the first time that I really clocked this in myself. I was fully an adult, paying bills, doing laundry, booking flights, being a functioning human, and then I liked someone. And suddenly I was spiraling because they hadn't texted back for 6 hours. We all know what that's like. And I was like, why am I acting 14 right now? Why does this feel like the end of the world? And then it hit me. I sat down and I really thought about this because I never got to be 14 years old and like someone. I never got the safe, stupid, low stakes heartbreaks. So my nervous system was experiencing all of this for the first time at an age where I thought that I should already be chill. And of course, it felt intense. It was my emotional first rodeo. And we really do judge ourselves as queer folks because we're like, why are we acting this way? Why do we feel this way? Why does this feel so over the top when everyone else around us, our straight friends, seem to be in that chill mode for the most part? Some of them are fucking crazy, but for the most part, they're chilling, they're getting engaged, they're getting married, they're having kids. And then I look around and I'm like, why am I still single? Why am I still alone? Why does this feel like I'm learning how to do this all over again? And again, it kind of is because I am learning how to do it. So many queer people carry this quiet shame about that. We look around and think everyone else knows what they're doing. Everyone else seems so casual about dating. And we think, like, what is wrong with me? Why do I either get attached too fast or not attached at all? Why do I overthink every single text? Why do I feel terrified to ask for what I want? But what if nothing is wrong with you? Take a second. What if nothing's wrong with you? What if you're not broken or needy or dramatic? What if you are just under practiced? What if you're learning something later because you didn't get the chance to learn it earlier? There is a very big difference between being bad at something and then being new at something. And I think a lot of us are just new. So when you frame it that way, it changes everything. Instead of judging yourself for feeling like you're a lot, or you can say, oh, this makes sense. Instead of I'm too much, it becomes I am learning. And instead of I should be better at this by now, it becomes no one ever taught me this. Our straight parents certainly did not tell us how to date because they were expecting us to date the opposite sex. And honestly, that shift alone gave me a lot more compassion for myself. It doesn't mean it doesn't sting sometimes, but reminding myself of this learning curve allows me to chill out a little bit because it's really hard to date when you're also reparenting your inner teenager at the same time. It's really hard to be smooth and confident when part of you is still whispering, like, is it even safe to be seen? And there's also grief in that. Grief for the experiences that we didn't get, the prom dates we didn't bring, the high school crushes we did not get to talk about, the silly, public, obvious romances that straight people take for granted. And sometimes we're not just learning how to date, we're mourning the years that we didn't. And that can make everything feel heavier because you're not just going on a first date. You're going on the first date you wish you could have had 10, 15, 20 years ago. That is a lot of emotional weight to put on one dinner or one drink or one cup of coffee. So, if dating has ever felt disproportionately intense for you, if every crush feels like it carries the emotional stakes of a movie soundtrack, if you sometimes feel like you're either all in or all out with absolutely nothing in between, I want you to hear this very clearly. You are not behind. You are not late. You are not defective. You just started when you were finally safe enough to start. And that's actually kind of beautiful because it means every step you're taking now is brave as hell. You're not just dating, you're undoing years of conditioning. You're teaching your body that connection is not dangerous. You're letting yourself want things that you were not allowed to want before. And that is huge. Walking down the street, holding hands, kissing in public, going on those dates, that is huge. So like I said, this month, as we talk about gay dating, queer sex, the apps, attachment styles, all of it, I want you to keep all of this in mind. Be gentle with yourself. Like you're not failing at love, you are learning it. And learning is very messy and it's awkward and sometimes embarrassing and sometimes magical. Sometimes you get an A plus, sometimes you fucking fail, but it's yours and you deserve to experience it fully, not from shame, but from curiosity. Like, okay, what happens if I let myself try? What happens if I let myself be seen? What happens if I stop assuming that I'm late and start assuming I'm right on time for my own motherfucking story? And that's fucking great because you are right on time. Like, truly, when it happens is when it's supposed to happen. So trust me when I tell you we're just getting started and we're going to figure this all out together. Part 2, gay dating culture, the apps, and why it sometimes feels like emotional dodgeball. So now that we've established that we are not broken, we're just late bloomers with emotional whiplash, let's talk about what happens when we finally step into the dating world. Because here is the plot twist that no one prepares you for. You finally come out. You finally feel brave enough. You put yourself out there and you say, okay, I'm ready to date. And then you open a gay dating app and it feels like you just got dropped into the motherfucking Hunger Games with shirtless, headless selfies. Like, truly, no orientation, no handbook, just complete naked vibes. And sometimes those vibes are absolutely chaotic. And also sometimes they can be kind of fun. Gay dating culture is such a specific beast, and I don't think we talk enough about how weird and intense and contradictory it can feel, especially at the beginning, because on one hand, it's beautiful, right? There's something incredibly liberating about suddenly having access to a whole world of people that are just like you. You go from feeling like the only queer person in your town to realizing there are hundreds, sometimes thousands of men within 5 miles or 5 feet who get you, who live like you, who desire like you. That part feels magical. It's like stepping into Oz, like Cynthia and Ariana, thank you. It's me. I was going to try to sing that better, but we're not going to put you through that. But you're like, oh my God, my people found them, right? But then 5 minutes later, someone messages you, host, and you're like, I'm sorry. Hello, we didn't even exchange names. That's how I kind of vibe. I'm like, don't send me your dick. Well, you can send me your dick pic, but like, I'm not going to respond with mine. And don't ask me to come over in 12 seconds. It's kind of like learning to swim by being thrown into the deep end of a pool where everyone else already has floaties and you're just like dog paddling emotionally. Because gay dating apps often skip many steps. Straight culture tends to follow this slow burn script. You meet someone, you talk, you date, maybe you kiss on the end of that date, maybe eventually you sleep together. There's this socially agreed upon pacing. But in queer culture, especially for men, it can feel like we hit fast forward immediately. You match. You trade 2 messages, you trade some nudes, and suddenly it's, what are you into? Are you a top or are you a bottom? And you're like, wow, okay, we are sprinting straight to the finish line. And there's nothing wrong with that. That works for most gays, a lot of people. And for some, They want a little bit more of that traditional kind of dating experience. And that's where you have to pause and ask yourself, do I want that traditional dating experience because I've been told by a straight culture that's what it should be? Or is that what I actually want? And again, there's nothing wrong with sex. Let me be clear. I am not here to shame hookup culture. I love that queer people have carved out spaces where pleasure is normalized and desire is not taboo. That is fucking powerful. That is bomb. Go for it. But it can get confusing when you're also craving more connection beyond just physical, beyond just, I don't even want to say this, but it's my catchphrase, beyond just sucking and fucking, okay? Because sometimes it feels like culture is saying, be chill, be hot, don't catch feelings, don't be needy, keep it casual, just worry about your six pack. And meanwhile, your heart is like, okay, I would love to hold hands and talk about our childhood trauma and maybe bake banana bread together. I'd probably bake maybe a rainbow sprinkle cake, not banana bread, but to each their own. And then you start to feel like you're asking for too much by wanting a little bit more connection. Like you want romance and somehow that makes you uncool. And of course, there are these apps. There are so many apps. We obviously have to get into more specifics of the apps. They are wild because they're both, again, the greatest gift and the greatest mind game that's ever been invented for queer people. Historically, they saved us. Truly, before apps, you had to go to one bar or one friend or hope you randomly clock each other at the grocery store. Apps gave us access. They gave us safety sometimes. They gave us community, especially for people in small towns or conservative areas. That's their outlet. That's how they can reach out to people like them when there's no one else in town around them. And for a lot of us, that first nearby grid on Grindr, you know what I'm talking about, was the first time that we realized that we were not alone and really opened our eyes to how big this community is. And that is huge and that matters. But psychologically, they can also wreck you if you're not careful because now attraction is gamified. Humans become profiles. You are not meeting someone organically. You're swiping through faces and or six packs and or dick pics like you're ordering takeout. And when you reduce people to thumbnails and stats and top or bottom, it gets really easy to forget that there is a whole human being on the other side, including yourself. You start evaluating yourself the same way. Am I hot enough, young enough, fit enough, mask enough, interesting enough? And suddenly your self-worth is tied to how many messages you got today. And I can 100% relate to that. I am 5'7". I am more flamboyant. I am more feminine. I definitely don't think I'm masculine. There are times when I try. It doesn't work. But people judge me for that. They will literally, if I would have messaged them and been like, hey, how's your day going? I will always start with something like that. They'll respond and just say mask only. That's how they respond. And it just really makes you feel like shit. Like you could have been like, my day's going well. You're not really my type, but I hope you have a good, just a little bit of I don't know, fucking manners. And that all messes with your brain because rejection used to happen occasionally. And now it happens constantly, silently, and daily. Someone doesn't respond. Someone does respond and then they ghost you. Someone blocks you randomly after having a bunch of conversations. Someone talks to you for 3 days and then they disappear into the motherfucking Grindr abyss. And there's no closure. There is no explanation, just digital vanishing acts. After a while, you start to internalize that. Even if you logically know it's not personal, your nervous system still feels it. It still registers as tiny little rejections over and over and over. Death by 1,000 swipes. Not to be dramatic, but death by 1,000 swipes. Left swipes, specifically. And then there is the comparison part. The comparison spiral. You open the app and it's like every man within a 1 mile radius has a six-pack, perfect lighting, they're 6 foot, whatever, and a professional headshot from what looks like a Calvin Klein campaign. Meanwhile, you're on your couch in sweatpants eating leftover pad thai. You're like, oh, cool. I love this for me. You start thinking that everyone else has more options, better dates, better bodies, better lives, even though you intellectually know everyone is curating their best angle. It still emotionally hits. It's like social media, but with your desirability attached. So what happens? a lot of us start armoring up again. Remember that armor we talked about in the first segment? It comes right back. We pretend that we don't care. We act attached. We play it cool. We say things like, I'm just looking for fun, when secretly we're like, please just hold me and tell me that I'm not too much. Because vulnerability feels risky in a culture that sometimes feels transactional. It's easier to ghost than to say, I'm not feeling it, or I'm not interested. It's easier to hook up than to risk rejection after a real date. And it's easier to stay surface level than to admit that you actually want something deeper. And I've noticed this myself too. There have been times where I caught myself treating dating like it was a performance instead of an experience. Like, how do I seem chill enough for this? How do I not scare them off? How do I text the right amount? And then I'll go to ChatGPT and I'm like, can you please help me? Because I clearly can't think for myself. And then I'm like, wait, what am I doing? I'm strategizing this like it's fucking chess. I don't even know how to play chess, but I imagine it's not that easy. This is supposed to be connection. This is supposed to feel kind of human, is it not? But the apps can trick you into thinking that dating is marketing. And in a sense, it is, because you're trying to sell your best self when you meet someone new, but it's not that deep. Like, you're branding yourself instead of just being yourself. And here's the thing that I wish someone had told me earlier. You are allowed to opt out of the chaos. You are allowed to use the apps differently. You are allowed to say, actually, I don't want to talk to 20 people at once. I want to talk to one. You're allowed to put looking for something meaningful in your bio without having to apologize for it. You're allowed to move slow. You're allowed to say no hookup energy if that is not what you want that day. And if it is what you want that day, great. Just because the culture leans one way does not mean that you have to. Because gay dating isn't just one thing. It's not just circuit parties and shirtless selfies and you up messages. It's also quiet dinners, movie nights, long walks, soft mornings, real partnership. Like, I know couples who met on Instagram or Grindr and are now married with dogs and a mortgage and matching Costco memberships. The apps aren't the enemy. They are just tools. And tools can either build something beautiful or smash your thumb depending on how you use those tools. Do you got that? I'm talking about like a hammer when you smash your thumb while you're trying to nail it in. I feel like I needed to explain that because my own joke almost went over my own head. But you get what I'm saying. So part of what we're talking about is dating intentionally, right? How to stay open without losing yourself, how to protect your mental health while still putting yourself out there. That is the fine balancing act. How to remember that you're a person, you are not just a profile, because you deserve more than feeling like you're constantly auditioning for someone's attention. Dodgeball, where you are just trying not to get hit. You are zipping right and left. You are dodging those balls. Maybe you want the balls to hit you. I don't know. It should feel curious. It should be playful. Sometimes dating is so awkward, sure, but like not soul crushing. And if it does feel soul crushing, that's not personal failure, but maybe that's a sign that you might need a different approach. Maybe it's less scrolling, more real life opportunities, fewer what are you into conversations at midnight, more coffee dates in the daylight where you can actually see someone's eyeballs. Because at the end of the day, we're not just bodies on a grid. We're humans who want to be chosen and want to be known. And I promise you, there are other queer people out there who want exactly what you want. You cannot be the only one, and I cannot be the only one that wants real connection. They're just as tired as you are, okay? They're just as confused. They're just swiping through the chaos, hoping to find something real, same as you. I think it's really easy to go like, ugh, everyone just wants to fuck. Nobody wants what I want. But you cannot be the only person who wants a real connection. If that is what you want, if you're listening and you don't want that, then super. But I'm talking about that real dating experience, real love, real partnership here. I always remind myself, you are not the only one. When I was using the apps, I have deleted all of them now, but I'm not the only one who wants something meaningful and real and long lasting and doesn't want to hook up. Like, I can't be the only gay out there. So yes, the apps, they be messy, baby. They are messy. Gay dating culture is chaotic, but there's so much possibility there. And if we can learn to navigate it with a little more self-awareness and a little less self-judgment, it gets a lot lighter and it gets a lot more fun and honestly a lot more romantic than we give it credit for. So next, we're going to talk about the part that everyone pretends not to talk about but absolutely thinks about: sex. I think this is like the real first time we've talked about sex. I'm going to say it 1,200 times. We're going to talk about why queer people, especially later in life, often go from repressed to wildly liberated real damn quick. Part 3: sex, repression, and the queer second puberty that nobody warned us about. All right, let's talk about the thing that everyone is thinking but pretending they're too evolved to talk about: sex. I don't know why people get so weird when we talk about sex, because we all fucking do it. Like, not to like mix sex with like going to the bathroom, but we all pee, we all poop, we all get drunk, we all pick our nose sometimes. Like, all of these things that people are so like, ooh, I'm too shy to talk about, are all the things that we all have in common and that we all do. We all fuck. So why are we trying to be all hush hush about it, okay? So that's where we're going now, because if dating is confusing, sex in the queer community can feel like a whole psychological roller coaster that has glitter all over it. And I want to approach this with zero shame, zero pearl clutching, because I think one of the most beautiful things about LGBTQ plus culture is how open and honest we are about sex. And I love that about us. I love it about me. I'm like, whatever, I'll tell you everything. I love that we don't whisper about desire for the most part, like it's something dirty. And I love that we built spaces where pleasure is celebrated, where exploration is normal, where you can talk about what you like without feeling like you're going to be sent to detention. But I also think there's a deeper reason why queer people can feel so sexually expressive, especially as we get older. And it's not just the we're wild or crazy or whatever stereotype that people want to throw at us. It's actually psychological, it is emotional, and it makes a lot of sense. So again, a lot of us didn't just delay romance, we delayed our entire sexual development. Straight kids get this slow, awkward runway into sexuality. They're allowed to have their crushes. They're allowed to talk about who's hot at school. They're allowed to explore attraction without questioning their identity or safety. Their sexuality is expected. It's even encouraged. The world basically hands them permission slips to say, yes, you're supposed to feel this way. Go ahead. Figure it out. Experiment while you're dating randomly in high school at 16 years old. Meanwhile, a lot of queer kids grow up feeling like their desire is wrong before they even fully understand what that desire is. So you're not just horny, you're scared. You're not just curious, you're hiding. Every attraction feels loaded and every thought feels like a secret. And that does something to you. You have to hide behind closed doors if you're going to try to find porn when you're trying to even figure out how the queer community has sex. I remember doing that at home on my computer in the living room, the family computer. Like, what gay has not done that? And like, I didn't even really know what gay sex was, but I knew I liked men. So I'm trying to like delete the history and do this in hiding. And like, I used to have an art book that had a nude female and a nude male in it. And I would like stare at the male when I was like 14 years old. And I'm like, why does this feel interesting? Like, I didn't even know, but I was trying to figure it out and explore, but doing it all in hiding, that does something to your brain. So yes, I remember being younger and not even letting myself fully acknowledge who I was attracted to. Like, my brain would literally censor itself. I'd see a guy and I'd think, nope, don't look too long. They're going to catch you. They're going to know. Don't think too hard about it. Don't let anyone notice. It's like your own mind becomes your hall monitor. And when you spend years doing that, policing yourself, shutting down your own desire, you don't get to develop a healthy, relaxed relationship with sex. And sex is a very big, important part of relationships. You develop a relationship with secrecy, with shame, with fear. So then fast forward to adulthood, you finally come out, you finally maybe feel a little bit safe, you finally give yourself permission, and suddenly it's like the floodgates open. And I swear, queer people don't just have a coming out, we have a second puberty, like truly, puberty 2.0. But now you have an adult, you have money, and you have an iPhone. You're 30 years old, and you're acting like a teenager again, but you're hotter, you got better skincare, you're suddenly noticing everyone, you're downloading the apps, you're experimenting, you're figuring out what you like. You're like, wait, this is allowed? I can just want people like out loud, and it's exhilarating. It's like your body has been holding its breath for 15 years and finally you exhale. And really, that phase is so sacred and can be so fun because for a lot of us, it is the first time we get to explore sex without fear. And I don't think a lot of us acknowledge it enough. It's the first time that desire doesn't feel dangerous. And that is huge. And that is healing. Maybe 3 years ago is when I started to finally feel that way. So I was 34 and I was like, I can just do anything I want without guilt. I don't have to feel bad for going to hook up with someone because straight people have been doing this since they were 16. I'm literally almost 20 years later after them being like, I can do whatever I want. I'm an adult. As long as I'm not hurting anyone, I'm not doing anything that makes me feel uncomfortable, then it's fine. And I just recently, in the last 3 years, figured that freedom out. But because everything has to be a bit complicated, here is where it gets complicated because liberation and chaos sometimes look very similar from the outside. When you've been repressed for years, you don't usually tiptoe into freedom. You fucking cannonball. You don't gently crack the door open and be like, hey, what's up? You kick it off the fucking hinges. And that is why sometimes queer sexual culture can look very intense. It can look party heavy, hypersexual, like everyone's moving at full speed all the time. And again, there's nothing inherently wrong with that. Consensual, joyful sex, I love that for us. But sometimes what we call just having fun is also us trying to make up for lost time. It's like we're subconsciously trying to cram 10 years of hookups and missed experiences into 12 months or 24 months. We really cram it in there. And again, there's nothing wrong with that, but it happens very quickly. So if you've ever been in that phase, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You're like, okay, I'm out now. Let's go. Let's live. Let's try everything. Let's kiss everyone. Let's stay out until 3 a.m. Let's say yes to the things just because we can. And it feels rebellious. It feels powerful. It feels like reclaiming your body. And in many ways, it is. But sometimes it can also be a little bit disconnected, and that creates a pattern for us. Because if you never learned how to emotionally connect sex and intimacy, you might default to physical experiences without checking in with your heart. You might chase validation instead of chasing connection. You might use sex as proof that you are desirable instead of as an expression of desire. And listen, I'm not judging that. Just like I said, no judgment here. But I've been there, right? I think that most of us have. There have definitely been moments in my life where I wasn't asking, do I actually want this? I was asking, do they want me? And those are two very, very different questions. One is empowering, and the other is exhausting. Because if you're constantly seeking sex to feel chosen, you'll never feel fully satisfied. You'll just keep refreshing the app like it's a slot machine, hoping for another hit of attention. And that's not liberation, that is anxiety in a rainbow flag. So I think that part of growing up queer, part of this second puberty, is learning to separate shame from intention and learning that you're allowed to be sexual and also mindful. You're allowed to explore and also have boundaries. You're allowed to love hookups, or you're allowed to hate them or change your mind week to week. There's no one right way to be a sexual person, but the goal, at least for me, has become asking, does this feel aligned with me, what I want, or am I performing what I think that queer culture expects? And that is a very important question to ask yourself, because sometimes the most radical thing that you can do isn't saying yes to everything. Sometimes it's saying no. Sometimes it's saying, actually, I don't want to go home with someone tonight. I want to go home and watch a movie and cuddle my dog and text the guy that I actually like. Sometimes it's choosing depth over novelty and stories you may share later. And sometimes it is the opposite. Sometimes it's saying, you know what? I do want to have fun. I'm not going to overthink it. I'm just going to go with the flow. This will make a great story after. I'm going to go have fun. And both are valid. But the key is that you are choosing and you're not just reacting. Choose what makes you feel good and what makes you feel comfortable. I also think that we deserve more conversations about emotional safety with sex, not just physical safety. We talk a lot about protection and prep and all that, which is important, obviously, but we don't talk enough about how sex can stir up feelings, especially for people who grew up hiding. Sometimes intimacy cracks you open. Many ways. Sometimes it brings up attachment stuff that you didn't know you had. So sorry, I'm still laughing. Sometimes intimacy cracks you open. Why did I write that? It's so funny. Sometimes I read this script stuff back and I'm like, that was unintentional, but also hilarious. And I can't help but laugh. Okay. Sometimes you think it's just a hookup and then you're lying awake at 2 a.m. like, wait, why do I suddenly care about this person? That does not make you weak. Like, feelings are cool. That makes you very, very human. Our bodies don't always separate physical and emotional as like neatly as we pretend that they do. Some people can put physical connection into one box and they can have sex with and hook up with whomever and have zero attachment. And I think that's where those kind of open relationships come in. Some people can navigate that. And some people can only hook up with people. Me, I can only hook up with people unless I feel some type of emotional connection. I want to have a drink first. I want to talk to you first. I want to get to know you a little bit. Like, and then we can see what happens. But like, you won't catch me just walking over to someone's apartment being like, knock, knock. I'm here. Pants off. Let's go. Not my vibe. Unless I'm on vacation. Then my vibe might change. But for the most part, no. So if you've ever felt like you're too emotional about sex or confused about why something casual didn't feel casual or guilty for wanting more connection, please know that you're not weird. You're just wired for intimacy. You're just wired differently. And that's actually not a bad thing. Queer culture doesn't have to either be hypersexual or hyperromantic. It can be both. It can be somewhere in that gray area. It can be playful and deep and messy and tender all at once. We get to define what sex means for us. It's not defined by religion. It's not defined by society. It's not defined by stereotypes. We get to decide what it means. And truly, after years of repression, there's something that is very powerful about looking at yourself and saying, like, my body is mine. My pleasure is mine. My choices are mine. There is no shame. There is no hiding. There is just honesty. And that's what I want for all of us. It is so freeing. It's not chaotic. There's no pressure. There's just that freedom with a little bit of intention. The kind of freedom where you wake up the next day feeling good, not confused or small or used or like you did something dirty that you shouldn't have done. It's the kind of freedom where sex just feels like an expression of who you are, another layer of who you are as a human. It's not a coping mechanism for loneliness. And truly, we did not fight this hard to be ourselves just to feel empty after having sex. We deserve joy. We deserve connection. We deserve experiences that feel expansive and not draining. And that's the energy that I want to bring into this whole month. Not sex is wild and crazy, but sex is human and meaningful and allowed, and we all do it. And one little thing I want to pause on before we zip ahead to the final little segment is we also have to acknowledge and pay attention to what our straight counterparts, and by counterparts, I mean like friends, family, parents, whatever, told us about sex growing up. For example, my mother told me, because obviously she found the gay porn on the family computer. Duh, I wasn't very good at hiding it back then. And she told me that's not what love looks like, right? And for her, that wasn't what love looks like. And now I'm like, boop, that's what love looks like to me, honey. Like, okay. I mean, not to get too graphic or detailed here, but it's like, obviously she couldn't comprehend that. And that was her relationship with sex. But our parents and our straight siblings kind of impact the way that we look at sex. And that's why for a very, very, very long time, until I was about 34, I was never all that comfortable feeling sexually open and like really letting loose in the bedroom. I was always policing myself. What I would say, the sounds that I would make, the things I wanted to do, I wouldn't do because I just felt like, well, I was told that's not what sex looked like when I was 14, 15, or 16 years old. So it's kind of worth sitting down and being like, let me just like make a little list here or take note, a mental note of how sex was relayed to us when we were not comfy, when we were teenagers, when we were hiding, and really just policing ourselves. So just a little side note there. So in our last segment, we're going to zoom out and we're going to talk about more tools. And by more tools, I mean tools because we haven't really talked about any tools in this episode. How do we actually navigate all of this? How do we date and connect and explore without losing ourselves? How do we check in emotionally and figure out what we actually want instead of just reacting to whatever pops up on our phone? Because awareness, that's where the glow up really happens. Part 4, tools, self-awareness, and how to date without losing yourself. We've talked about the delayed timeline. We've talked about the apps and the chaos and the emotional dodgeball of modern gay dating. We've talked about sex and repression and this very real second puberty where you're suddenly 30 and acting like you're 17, but with better outfits. And if you're still listening to all of this, thinking, okay, cool, I feel seen, but also, what do I actually do with this information? How do I not just keep repeating the same patterns over and over and over? How do I date without feeling like I'm spiraling every time someone doesn't text me back? How do I have fun and stay open without emotionally detonating every 3 weeks? And that's what this is all about, this last part. Because, like I said, awareness is cute, but these tools are hot. They're sexy. Here's the thing that I have learned, and I'm still learning it in real time. You don't need to become some perfectly healed, zen, attachment style guru before you date. That is not realistic. If we all waited until we were fully healed, none of us would ever leave the fucking house. Dating is messy. Feelings are messy. You're going to catch feelings for the wrong person sometimes. You're going to ignore a red flag just because they're friggin' hot. You're going to send a double text you swore you would not send. That is called being a human being on this planet Earth. The goal is not perfection. The goal is consciousness. It's noticing yourself while this is all happening instead of waking up like 3 months later going, wait, how did I end up here again? Why am I in this exact same position that I hate being in? And I think for a lot of queer people, especially those of us who started later, we never got taught how to check in with ourselves emotionally. We learned how to scan other people. We learned how to read rooms. We learned how to adapt and shapeshift and be whatever it was that would keep us safe. We didn't learn how to ask, what do I actually want right now? Not what will make them like me. Not what makes me look chill. Not what seems desirable. What feels good to me? And that question alone is pretty revolutionary because so much of queer dating can accidentally become performative. You're trying to be the cool one, the easy one, the low maintenance one. You don't want to scare anyone off, so you say you're fine with casual, even when you want something deeper. Or you pretend that you don't care when they disappear for 3 days or 3 months. Or you act like you're totally down for whatever when inside you're like, actually, I would love some clarity if you could please provide some. And then every time you override yourself like that, you shrink a little. You teach your brain that your needs are inconvenient. And then we wonder why dating feels exhausting. And of course it does. You're not being yourself. You are playing a character. So one of the biggest tools that I've started using is stupidly simple, but wildly effective. Before I date, before opening the apps, before texting someone I'm excited about, I literally ask myself, what am I looking for right now? Not in life, not in some abstract 5-year plan, like right now, tonight, today, this morning, this afternoon. Am I lonely and just want company? Am I horny and just want fun? Am I craving actual connection and conversation? Because those are very different energies. And when you're honest about which one it is, you make better choices. You stop trying to force a hookup into becoming a boyfriend. You stop expecting deep emotional intimacy from someone who clearly said they were just passing through town. You meet the moment for what it is instead of what you wish it would be. Very easy. What do you want right now? And then go for it. Another tool is paying attention to your body. And I know that sounds very like yoga teacher of me. I do teach yoga, but hear me out. Your body is smarter than your brain half the time. Your brain will rationalize anything. He hasn't texted back because he's busy. He canceled because he's stressed. He said he doesn't want a relationship, but maybe he'll change his mind. Your brain is a PR team, okay? But your body knows. Your body tightens around people who are not safe. Your chest feels heavy when something is off. Your stomach drops when you're chasing someone who isn't choosing you back. And the opposite is true too. When something's right, you feel calm. You feel steady. You're not obsessively checking your phone. You're just like, okay, this is peaceful. And I swear, calm is so underrated in dating. I love calm, please. More calm. Bring it my way. We're used to butterflies and anxiety and drama, and we mistake that for chemistry. But sometimes chemistry is just nervousness in a leather jacket. Real connection often feels, I don't like to use the word boring, but it feels boring at first because it is safe. I talked about this a few episodes ago, right? It doesn't need to be that roller coaster. We often cancel someone out just because it's not that roller coaster. But what we really want most of the time deep down is consistency, someone we know is going to follow through, someone we know is going to respond, is going to put in the effort, is going to text us back, is going to just be consistent. And that, for us in our nervous system, is boring. But that is connection. So if you take nothing else from this episode, take this. Pay attention to how someone makes you feel, not just how attractive they are or how much you want them to like you. Do you feel relaxed or do you feel like you're auditioning? Because love should not feel like an audition. I also think that we have to normalize talking about our needs earlier, not in a, so what are we on the second date kind of way, but in a clear, grounded way. Like, hey, just so you know, I'm dating with intention, or hey, I'm keeping things casual right now. I'm not really looking for something serious, or hey, communication really matters to me. Like, it's wild how much suffering that we create by being afraid to say simple truths. We think that being honest is going to scare people away. But honestly, the right people are not scared by clarity. The wrong people are. I've said this a gazillion times, but that is actually very helpful. It saves you time. I don't want someone who only likes the watered down, chill, low needs version of me. I want someone who can handle the full, slightly dramatic, very hot air, very talkative, occasionally anxious, but deeply loving version of me. That is the package you get, baby. No motherfucking returns, okay? This isn't Amazon. You can't drop me off at a Whole Foods desk and Amazon's going to take me back. I've said this many times. Sabrina Zohar is the one who hammered this into my head. It is okay to go into your date and not interrogate someone, but be like, just so you know, I'm not fucking around. I'm not trying to hook up with a gazillion people. I am out here with intention. I'm not saying I want to marry you right now, but I am hoping that I meet somebody who's on the same page as me, that I can start a partnership with. I mean, all of that might be a bit dramatic for a first date, but it's okay to just be honest and let people know what you need. And if it's the other side too, you just want to fuck, say that. Be upfront. It saves us a lot of confusion and a lot of time. Something else I really want us to practice this month is decentering scarcity, because apps and gay culture can make it feel like if this one person doesn't work out, that's it. You're doomed. You'll die alone with your house plans. But that is not true. There are so many queer people in this world, so many potential connections. But when we hyper focus on one person who's giving us little breadcrumbs, we act like they're the last person on earth. We start negotiating with ourselves. We accept less than we know we should be. We're overfunctioning. And it's like, baby, come on, stand up. There are other options. There are people who will text you back. Like, if that's the bare minimum. It's like, just text me back. There are people who will do that. They know how to use their thumbs, okay? There are people who will plan dates. There are people who won't make you guess how they feel. But you have to believe that you deserve that, or you are going to keep chasing the bare minimum. I personally don't think dating should be confusing. I think that if people are open and honest, you are going to know where somebody stands. So the tools are very simple, but they are very powerful. Check in with yourself. Name what you actually want. Listen to your body. Communicate clearly. Don't shrink. Don't perform. And remember, You have options. Dating gets so much lighter when you stop trying to convince someone to choose you and you start asking, do I even choose them? One of my friends very recently is going through a marriage that broke up. And I said to them that you don't need to wait around for him to decide what he wants. If he's MIA and not giving you the communication that you require, you can make the choice for him. And by making the choice for him, you are making the choice for yourself. You get to decide what you want, what you will put up with, and somebody else somewhere in the world down the line will give you what it is that you desire. And that is what this whole month of hot air is all about, okay? Not how to get a boyfriend or how to have the best sex ever. It is about how to stay yourself in the middle of it all. How to date from self-worth instead of fear. How to enjoy connection without abandoning your needs. We're going to talk more about attachment styles. We'll talk about first dates, red flags that we ignore because someone has nice biceps. We're going to talk a lot about communication, situationships, heartbreak, healing, sex, all of it. The funny stuff, the deep stuff, and the slightly unhinged, uncomfy stuff, because queer love is far more complicated than I think we acknowledge, but it's also electric and creative and fun, and it's unlike anything else when we figure out how to navigate it. We didn't get the standard blueprint, so we get to build our own. You can make your own rules here. And yes, maybe we started later. Maybe we're learning how to do this in our 30s or 40s or 50s. But I kind of like that for us because we are evolved. And now we get to do it more consciously, intentionally, and with way better taste. So if you're single, if you're dating, if you're situationshipped, if you're freshly heartbroken, if you're wildly in love, or somewhere in between all of that, you are in the right place this month. This month is for you, okay? We're figuring it all out together without shame, without pretending, and all of the honesty. If you are single and navigating and figuring this out, you're not behind because like samesies, you're not too much. You are not asking for too much. You are just learning how to love a little bit louder. And that is very brave. So we covered a lot today. We talked about 500 million things, why queer people feel delayed in love, why gay dating culture apps can be complicated, but also a little bit of fun. We talked about that sexual liberation. I could go on and on and on. But really, just date consciously, listen to your body, be honest about what you want, and let yourself enjoy the ride because it should be fun. Life should be fun. Life is too short not to be fun, and it is absolutely worth it. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram and TikTok at _hotairpod and visit hotairwithjoshuarobert.com to shop merch, submit your listener stories, or send in topic suggestions for a future episode. And that's it for me for today. So stay sexy, stay curious, stay open to... I want to swear and say some really dirty stuff. Just stay sexy, okay? Like, queers are hot. We're hot. So, like, stay sexy, but, like, only if you want to. Okay. And I will see you next Tuesday.